Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Manuscript podcast, where we believe 21st century man controls his destiny, that his choices define his future, and that he writes the script to his own life. I'm your host and fellow man, Ruben Stamper, and as always, it is an honor, a pleasure, dare I say, a privilege to have you all here with me today. Thank you so much for listening. So, we'll get right into things. You may be wondering, Ruben, what is the Manuscript podcast even about? I'll break it down for you. In this podcast, my main goal is to give men the tools they need to be happy. That's the key word, happy. In the truest sense, not I'm enjoying this bag of Doritos on my couch happy. I'm talking the deepest sense of fulfillment and joy, where you just can be at peace with yourself and with the world around you. Happiness. That's what I'm going for here with this podcast. I'm not here to try and tell you how to pick up women. I am not going to try and tell you how to become the richest man in the world. I'm not going to try and tell you that a yacht is the thing that's going to bring you the utmost satisfaction. It's not what I believe. Now, all the principles and values that I'm going to talk about in this show, do they contribute to those things if you want them to? Absolutely. You know, I think being a courageous man, being a virtuous man, makes you attractive to women. Fair enough. It also makes you better in the workplace. You make more money. It also helps you achieve your goals. So if your goal is a yacht, boom, you can make it happen. You just have to be very dedicated. So once again, I'm talking about universal things that throughout history have made men good or even great. Now, before we get started, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself so you're not running into this blind, not knowing who I am. Hi, my name is Ruben Stamper. I'm 23. I am a college dropout. That's my claim to fame. I went for 2 years, found out it wasn't for me, and dropped out. I worked really hard. I learned a lot while I was there, but it wasn't for me. I couldn't see the results of my hard work, and that was very difficult for me. So I dropped out. I am not a perfect man. I'd like to put that out there as well. I'm very flawed. It's one of the reasons that I'm really stoked about this podcast, because I think that it's going to really force me to be a better man. And so, you know, the more people I have watching too, it's like, oh man, it's a little bit of pressure now. I got to be even better. And so that is one of the, selfish goals of this podcast. And so I guess what else you need to know about me? I work remodeling, hence the hat over there, the hard hat. I work remodeling. I have a side business where I do remodeling as well. So for my full-time job, remodeling type stuff. And then for my side business, I do side jobs, which make a little bit more money. But yes, you get the point. I like to consider myself a hard worker, something I've actually always been proud of. Once again, I like to harp on the fact that I'm very imperfect. So all the principles and values that I talk about in this show, they're true. As far as I can understand them, they are true. And when I find myself not living by those principles, I become miserable. I become unhappy. And I know that I'm not becoming the man that I could be, right? So one of the reasons that this podcast is very personal to me is after I dropped out of college. So I went for those 2 years, like I said earlier. After I dropped out of college, I was miserable. I was the most depressed I've ever been. I was depressed in college, but man, when I got out, it was a whole new level or sub-level, whatever you want to call it. And so I was very upset with life. I felt stuck. I felt like I was never going to progress. I kind of felt like a failure to an extent because I had got out of college. And, our culture tells you if you don't get through college, you're a failure. Once again, I'm not worried about what the culture says. But that is how it felt at the time. I was very down, very low. And I had to really get back to the fundamentals of what I believed in, what I believed made a man good. I would never claim to be a great man, but I would hope that people who know me would say I'm a good man. And most importantly, I had to figure out, what do I do to become happy? Because I could try and achieve all these things, whether it's money or women or whatever it is. But if I'm not happy, then the whole world's dark. There's nothing worth going after. And so one of the reasons I'm creating this podcast is because I know I'm not the only guy that's gone through that. As a matter of fact, I know a lot of men who, have struggled in their lives, and they don't even know about these principles that I was lucky enough to have been given. I'm, once again, by no means perfect, but I've been very, very blessed with a good set of men around me who can bring me up, a set of people who could teach me good values and good principles to live by since I was very young. And I know a lot of men don't even have that. They don't have a good infrastructure of men and family, people who love them, in their lives. And so I think, the least I could do is hopefully share some helpful information to those men who are out there, who are hurting, who feel stuck, who feel as though they're never going to be more than what they are right now. And so that's one of the reasons I'm creating this podcast. I'm super passionate about this. It's really amazing to get to talk about something that I am so fired up about, So I'm really excited for the podcast. And that's what the podcast is about. I hope I've given you a good overview. It's a podcast about helping men become happy through principles and values that are timeless, that have been around forever, and that will make you into a better man. So, without further ado, let me explain the 3 different sections of each episode. So, the first section of the episode is talking about, like I said, a principle or a value or a motto or a mantra, some bit of knowledge that is going to help you progress as a man and help you become a happier man. Okay, that's the first section. Very simple, very cut and dry. The second section is going to be talking about an article or a piece of information that is current and that is relevant, that applies to masculinity in the 21st century, that I think should be discussed because, it is relevant and important for men to understand what's going on in the world. So that's section 2. And then section 3 is a section I'm going to call Ruben Rants. And it's all about me getting either super stoked and happy about something, or alternatively, incredibly pissed and upset at something. And it's going to be really fun because I'm just going to rant about things that bother me or, that I really enjoy. So anyways, those are the 3 sections of the podcast. I hope you're interested. So let's get right into it, okay? I'm going to skip the first part because I was telling you what the podcast was about. So we're going to jump right into the second part. So in this section of the podcast, we talk about a article or some kind of theme that is going on in the 21st century. It's happening now that needs to be talked about. And so for today, we're going to be talking about a stat put out by CBS that there are currently 7.2 million able-bodied, able-minded men who are not in the workforce. Not only that, they're not even attempting to work, right? So when people look at unemployment statistics, that actually presupposes that you are looking for work. So if you're unemployed, it means you are looking for work. These people do not even apply to that statistic because they're not looking. They've given up. They're basically bagging off either the girlfriend or their parents, living in their basement and not contributing whatsoever to society. So, this may be the part where you want me to completely bash on those men if you're a hardworking guy, if you're out there busting your ass every single day. And I can understand where you're coming from. But, there's really 2 sides to this that I want to discuss. The first is actually empathy, believe it or not. When the world and all the social influences, not social influencers, but social influences, as in the news, as in the internet, as in people who digest those things. When they're all telling you that, any choice you make in life is worthless, that you can't control your own future, that basically your life is completely determined by the circumstances around you. Like people say, don't get married because it's going to fail. There's no, she's going to leave you and take half, or things like you can't get ahead because big corporations are always stealing your money, or you work your ass off just so you can pad the pockets of the big guy, stuff like that you hear all the time from the society in which we live. And it's such a disheartening, bullshit message because it's not true. It's not true. But if you're a man who falls for that, and you believe that you can't make choices that are going to better your own life, then damn, I mean, why not just live your life in one giant masturbation cycle in your mother's basement? Why not? Like, what is there to really strive for? What is there to work for? Because everything that I do is going to lead to nothing. Now, I know that's a very dismal outlook on life, but I truly believe that in order to be an able-bodied, able-minded man and not be seeking work, that's the mindset you've got to have. You just have to have completely given up. So those messages that are in our culture, those really piss me off. They really do. Because it's people taking this mentality that the whole world is out to get them and they just can't get ahead. There's nothing they can do. There's always something you can do to make yourself better. There's always something you can do to change the situation that you find yourself in. So, yeah, that's bullshit. That's the way I see it. Nick Eberstedt has a book. He calls it Men Without Work. And he basically studied these 7.2 million men, right? He went in detail talking about, their habits and what they're doing with their time. And one of the interesting things I do want to talk about is that these men spend over 2,000 hours a year on screens. Now, you take that into its totality. You're talking about video games. You're talking about internet time. You're talking about your phone. But 2,000 hours of their lives on screens. For reference, 2,080? Yeah, 2,080 hours a year is a full-time job. You're talking about making money. You're talking about actually trying to take control of your own life, at least financially, if nothing else, at least financially. You're talking about if you just took those 2,000 hours and put them towards a 40-hour-a-week job. And that's without any kind of vacation or anything, and most people, they get whatever it is, like 2 weeks paid vacation, right? That's pretty standard, okay? Or at least 2 weeks vacation, regardless of whether it's paid or not. So Nick Eberstedt came out with that book, and I just think that's fascinating. What have we done to men to make them just completely give up? To say, there's nothing I could do with my life that's worthwhile, so I'm just going to try and get myself in one giant pleasure loop that just goes around and around, and I'll go until I, off myself. It's super sad. I mean, it's once again, I kind of get it. I have a lot of empathy for these guys, even though, one part of me is empathetic and one is like, get off your ass and go do something. These are the two opposing thoughts that I'm having. But at the same time, when I was super depressed that year out of college, well, I really wasn't trying to become a better person. I kind of stopped. I kind of gave up as well. And I luckily had a support system around me that kind of got me out of that funk. And I also started making choices with my own life to get back on track, to start living by the principles and values that previously I had, claimed to adore. It's like, oh, these things are great. You should go live by them. But I wasn't living by them. I gave up, and I was able to get out of that. But there's 7.2 million men who haven't. That's problematic. Incredibly problematic. And I think it's sad because we also have so many avenues through which you can convince yourself you're doing well. I'm a big fan of video games. I enjoy playing Call of Duty, Halo, one of my favorite games ever. And most of these guys, like we were talking about before, with spending 2,000 hours of a year, 2,000 hours of your life a year on screens, it's like you can just kind of imagine why they're doing that. It's because there's an innate thing within men to want to accomplish things. And in video games, there's objectives and there's things you're going to accomplish. And you go grab your posse from, online and you go and do something. And I'm not anti that, but all things in moderation. And you could just see how someone could convince themselves, oh, I need to go do this new thing. I need to get this new suit of armor. I need to go, whatever it is in the game that is the next objective. I need to go accomplish that because that's going to give me fulfillment. And so there's that aspect of things. And then there's men on the other side too, with the screens. It's like, okay, they're spending 2,000 hours of their time on screens. What are they doing? It's like they can convince themselves that pornography is the same thing as a great, healthy relationship with a woman that actually brings you joy and fulfillment. And they convince themselves that they're worthy of all these women online who they're not. I mean, maybe they are because both people are really messed up in the situation, but they can convince themselves that, women are trash. I don't want to be around women. They're terrible. And that's a terrible message in and of itself. That's a whole nother episode coming along down the pike, I promise. But yeah, I think that's another thing. It's like men are going to try and at least convince themselves that they are accomplishing something. And so you've got all these different avenues. You could spend all your money on a credit card to saying, oh, I'm really rich. I can go, throw money here, throw money there. When in fact, you're spending a giant company's money and you still owe it to them, right? So there's all these different things that I think these men, you talk about the screen, you talk about the lifestyle they're leading. It's very dismal. It's very dismal. So anyways, I thought that was really interesting. And then on the other side, yeah, I'm pissed. Fair enough. Empathy is a good thing to have, and I do have it towards these men. I understand it. I understand that you've got a rough society around you. On the other hand, the whole point of this freaking podcast is that you get to make choices, right? And those choices define your future. They make you into the man that you are, okay? You can look back at your life and just see time and time again the choices you have made have led you to become the man you are today. That's either going to be a man you're proud of or a man that lacks all self-confidence and is just shying away from all the good that's in the world because it might involve conflict, It creates weak men, and I'm not a fan of that. This whole mindset of basically giving yourself to pleasure without any end goal. Not a fan of that. And also, 7.2 million men in the economy would be a really good thing. Can you imagine how much better off we would be? There's just logistical side to this as well, but it makes me sad, but it makes me mad too. And it also makes me I'm more pissed at the messages that are coming at these men than the men themselves. The men are reacting and it's not good, and you need to get off your ass and go do something and make something out of yourself. That's very true. But also, the messages are there. I'm not going to try and pretend like they're not. There are so many different messages telling men that you can't really achieve anything, and you're kind of stuck under the hand of your boss, or the hand of your oppressive woman, or the hand of this or that. It's not giving men the tools they need to actually go and attack and embrace the conflict that life brings, the conflict that will actually lead you to happiness. But anyways, I digress. That was the article that I wanted to talk about concerning manliness in the 21st century. I hope you enjoyed it. All right, everyone, we are at that point in the podcast where I get to talk about something that peeves me, that irks me, that vexes me, that it's just fun to talk shit about. So, hot take, and this lady I'm about to talk about, she's been in the press recently destroying the NFL and making the NFL really a joke. I'm here to see 300-pound men hit each other, not this lady. And at this point, you probably have picked up on who this is. That lady would be Taylor Swift. And no, I'm actually not going to talk about the impact she's having on the NFL in a negative way. I'm actually going to talk about the fact that she ruined modern relationships. Hot take. Crazy. Ruben, why would you say that? Now, first off, I will be clear in the sense that you have to respect Taylor Swift. She's jumped from genre to genre to genre and been successful in every single one. She writes her own music. There are, some admirable things about that. It's like, okay, you've done really well for yourself. I can admire the hard work you've put in. You obviously create really catchy and fun music. And I had to dive deep into my 15 or 16-year-old self's past to find this song, but I thought this was funny, right? Because I I like Taylor Swift's music. It's fun, you know. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you guys and say that I don't. It's very catchy. It's very fun, but it has some of the absolute worst relationship advice and themes and tropes within it imaginable. I mean, it's really ridiculous, guys. So I'm gonna read you just a little bit of a song that she wrote. Right, it is from one of her albums, As Fearless. It's a song called "That's the Way I Loved You." And you hear the lyrics. And it's always funny when you read lyrics because it doesn't sound right. And, you know, once again, guys, this is the part of the podcast. I don't take myself seriously. I'm really just talking shit about something that I think is funny. So here are the lyrics. He is sensible and so incredible, and all my single friends are jealous. He says everything I need to hear, and it's like I couldn't ask for anything better. He opens up my door, and I get into his car, and he says, "You look beautiful tonight." And I feel perfectly fine. But I miss screaming and fighting and kissing in the rain, and it's 2 a.m. and I'm cursing your name, so in love that you act insane, and that's the way I loved you. Breaking down and coming undone, it's a roller coaster, kind of rush. And I never knew I could feel that much, and that's the way I loved you. So here's the reason that these verses are pure bullshit, is that you can't, in my opinion, once again, this is my opinion. It's right, but it's also my opinion. You can't create a good, healthy relationship with someone if there's not consistency, right? So, you know, great relationships, in my opinion, they slowly grow better, right? And the relationship she's talking about here, you know, she's got a guy that's taking care of her that seems to be a gentleman, seems to be treating her very well. You know, and not in like a wimpy way, like hey, like, you know, I'm your man, you're my lady, this is great, you know. Seems to be treating her in a really nice way. And yet she misses the volatility and the craziness of a guy who treated her like absolute, you know, dog crap. Like, what is this? You know, like, here's been my theory on relationships between men and women. This is just my take. I think the best relationships, and this is off of what I've seen with people, this is off of just, you know, the people in my life who I really admire, who have great relationships, is that they slowly build something great over time, right? So their trend looks like this, like little beeps here and there, you know, ups and downs, but it's constantly going up, right? But the relationship Taylor Swift is talking about here, it looks more like this, right? It's just up and down, and it's got to be exhausting. I mean, I can't imagine, you know, just the emotional highs and lows. And this is like all her songs talk about this. There's like, if you're not feeling a crazy rush 24/7, then it's not love. And it's like, that's just, no, that's not how it works. It's such an unhealthy way to look at things. So hot take. I know, it's crazy, but Taylor Swift has some absolute trash advice when it comes to healthy relationships, you know? Her songs they've promulgated since the early 2000s because this lady's been around forever. They have promulgated this to generations and generations of women. That this is what love looks like. If you're not having all these crazy butterflies 24/7, whew, things must really be going rough for you. No, that's bullcrap. Healthy relationships, you build something amazing over time. Slowly, you get better and better and better. You don't have these crazy ups and downs. You know, every now and then you get in really big fights and you got to fight stuff out, and that's good. But the roller coaster graph of love, it's not real love. It's not true love. It's not dedication. And so, anyways, I digress. But that is my Ruben Rants section of the week. I hope you enjoyed. All right, folks, that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Manuscript Podcast. It was an honor to have you here with me today. And as always, remember, there's a better life out there. Let's get after it.